Hello, my name is Mario. Welcome to another Go video. Let's talk about the latest release 1.25. Go 1.25 was released on August 12, 2025, and to date, all the major platforms already have an update that you can start using right away. And even if you don't have an update, if you have a recent version of Go, you can start taking advantage of the toolchain to update behind the scenes to Go 1.25. Let me show you how you can do it. It's pretty straightforward. As usual, there is a link in the description of this video pointing to all the examples that I'm going to be showing you. You can start using Go 1.25 by taking advantage of the go.mod edit command. In order to do that, you just have to run the command that I'm showing you right here, and immediately your go.mod will be upgraded to Go 1.25. Of course, this assumes that you have a recent version of Go, at least Go 1.21. So let's talk about all the features that were added that I think are worth calling out. There are two things that were improved in the toolchain. One of them will be the doc command as well as the vet command. I will show you the go doc first because I think this is a really nice way to run locally what it will be equivalent to the pkg go dev website that you can use to browse the documentation, but then it refers locally to all the packages that you have installed. In order to use it, you just have to do a go doc HTTP, and you don't have to explicitly indicate the package that you want to display. So if by default I run go.http with no arguments, what it's going to take is my module, and then it's going to open up a browser that is going to be displaying all the documentation associated to that module. In this case, it will be the repository that I'm using for these videos. So if you notice right here, you can browse all the documentation that I have. And this also applies if you decide to pass in the standard library package from the command line as well. Let me show you what changed in the vet command. The second one is the govet. It adds two new checks, one for the wait groups. It checks that you're not adding a wait group in the Go routine that you're instantiating. And the second one is making sure that the addresses that you're going to be using for net.dial are not concatenated via sprintf, but rather an explicit function that you have to use. Let me show you first the Go wait groups and how this works now in Go 1.25. For the wait group example, you will notice right away that it's immediately complaining about the way I'm adding a new wait group. I shouldn't be adding a wait group inside the Go routine, but rather outside of the Go routine. In order to fix this issue, we need to get rid of this add and instead doing it outside and before the Go routine. Another thing that was added in Go 1.25 for the wait groups is that I can actually modernize this using the new Go method and refactor this a little bit. So let's modernize this by using the waitgroup.go method. And with that, we are also taking advantage of the method, we're taking advantage of the govet, and we are taking advantage of the new things in Go 1.25. Let me show you the other thing that was added to govet. As you can tell right away, the issue is related to the way we are constructing this address. It doesn't consider the fact that this could be IPv6. In this case, of course, it's at IPv4. But in order to fix it, you will have to use the net join host port. So you use net join host port, which is the correct one, and you will see address is the one that you're expecting, and then voila. That's how we should start constructing our addresses from now on when we're using Go 1.25 and especially the new govet changes. Let's talk about the next feature I want to call out. The next feature I want to cover is the container-aware GOMAXPROCS. The GOMAXPROCS variable limits the number of operating system threads that can execute user-level Go code simultaneously. This is important because you will typically orchestrate your services using something like Docker, Kubernetes, ECS, or something along those lines. This simplifies the process we need to follow in order to set the right value for the GOMAXPROCS environment variable. In order to see it in practice, let me open up this README that I have right here, and it will demonstrate a simple example that you can take a look. This is just literally printing out the values that are in the configuration in your environment variables. Nothing crazy. The important bit will be when we are calling this using a Docker container or containerization. So in this case, I'm using the most recent Golang bookworm version, and it should be printing out the values that I have by default in this example, which in this case will be 8 for both the GOMAXPROCS environment variable as well as the number of CPUs, as you can see right here. But if we decide to change the number of CPUs that we are using in our container, the values will change. Let me show you. Let's say we decide to use 4 CPUs now. In this case, passing in the CPU's argument to the docker run command. Let's see what it prints out. As you can see, the number of MacOS changed to 4, but the number of CPUs stayed as 8. This is nice because you don't have to worry about configuring this manually. It will be handled behind the scenes by the Go runtime. Let's talk about the next feature I want to show you. The new feature is the testing synctest package. This was available sort of like an experimentally via an environment variable in Go 1.24, but now it's available for everybody. There are functions that we're going to be testing, the retry and the calculate, and I want to call out that for this case we're going to be using the time.sleep function in our implementation. In order to test this, you will have to start using this new test function and wrap everything that relates to the time.sleep or anything relates to time passing in your test. And if you'll notice, if I run this, you will see that it immediately finishes. But if we were not using this synctest method, you will notice that it will actually wait. So this is the biggest difference when you're not using synctest test and the normal typical testing process. Now let's talk about the wait. The other function in this package is called wait, that you can see right here, and this blocks everything that is under the test function. What this does basically is just make sure that all the Go routines, in this case this one, is finished until it can continue. And more importantly, it allows you to take advantage of the race argument when you're running a test to determine if you have a race condition in your test. So for example, if I decide to run this, it will pass immediately. But let's say that I don't use the test. It will fail because obviously the Go routine didn't complete before checking. But if I decide to pass in the race parameter, it will immediately detect the race condition. This is nice because now you can tell if one of your tests or some of your tests are failing because of race conditions, which brings an interesting point. Always pass in the race argument when you're running your tests. Let's talk about the next feature that was added to Go 1.25. This new feature is an experiment. Therefore, you need to use the Go experiment environment variable and pass in JSON v2. As you can see, my editor is complaining because I cannot find those packages, but it's fine. Let's ignore it for now. It will compile and you will see it in a moment. What I want to call out in this example is that there are a few new things that were added, and I highly encourage you to read the documentation because by default, v1, which is the current implementation that we have in encoding JSON, works as is using the v2 behind the scenes implementation. But if you happen to start using v2 to marshal and non-marshal your types, things by default are different. So please read the documentation. One thing that was added is this concept of inline, and you will see when I'm printing out the result of this marshal. Another thing that was added is a way to format content, or rather the result of the marshal stuff in our structs. And another thing that I kind of like is this concept of marshalling types without explicitly implementing the JSON marshaller interface. Now, if you notice right here, so we have my types, priorities, a task, and there is a date. As soon as I call the JSON marshal, it will print out the value that I'm supposed to be printing out. And this is kind of the basic example. There are a lot of new things that were added related to v2 to improve the way we're dealing with JSON and in general when we're unmarshalling or marshalling data in JSON. Let me show you the output of this. So one thing that I want to show you is, if you remember, ID had this tag that it says it will be marshaled as a string. So you don't have to explicitly convert this ID field into a string. The marshaller will be converting that value into a string. The new inline attribute in the JSON tag, and this what happens is sort of like embedding the value that you had in this field and sort of like moving it up. So the dates won't be a dates field, but rather it will be moving up this start date and due date into the parent object that is actually referring to it. So if we go back, you will notice that now we have a start date and due date, and more importantly, these are formatted according to the configuration that we put in the JSON tag. This definitely simplifies a lot of things related to marshalling and non-marshalling and improves the way we're dealing with JSON, but it's going to be a massive change if you want to upgrade your v1 to v2 and make sure everything is backwards compatible. This last feature is the addition of 12 new methods added to the root type in the OS package. Remember, the root type was added in Go 1.24. Let me show you a few of those. Of course, I'm not going to cover all of them, but in practice, they are equivalent to what you will see in the OS package as functions. Remember, the root type allows you to somehow sandbox a path wherever you indicate, and only will be available to all the methods that are being called to execute some sort of instruction for that path. In order to demonstrate this, I have this walkdir function right here that will basically just walk through the directory and print out whatever is inside. So let me show you. As you can see, we created a parent data folders, and we wrote a new file, and we created a symbolic link, and then we decided to remove all those files, and we listed all the files one more time, and everything is gone. So again, these are associated to a root type in the OS package that allow you to sandbox and make everything secure and concise and in the context of whatever path you're passing in. And that's it. Thank you for watching. This is everything I wanted to share with you. Of course, there are more things in Go 1.25. I highly encourage you to read the documentation. I highly encourage you to read the release notes. There are a lot of new things that I didn't cover because although are valuable, I think these are the things that are worth calling out. But again, please read the documentation, read the links. There are blogs that are coming out from the official Go team. That's nice. And that's pretty much it for now. I will talk to you next time. Thank you for watching. Take care and stay safe. See ya.